My god, it has been too long since we last got an episode from Miraculous Season 6, hasn't it? Way too long. I've made a number of videos talking about that fact, but now the wait is over. We got Mr. Agreste and they've come back swinging for the fences with an episode that is absolutely cooking with gas. Seriously, it was such a big episode with so much character development, story progression, and huge moments. And once again, the focus was spread across various different characters perfectly. It felt balanced. Was it in Season 4 that the writing team came out and said that they wanted every second or third episode to feel Cat Blanc level? I don't think it ended up happening in that season, but here we are in Season 6, and it feels like the three most recent releases, El Toro de Piedra, The Ruler, and now Mr. Agreste, have all been on that level of quality, whilst the other episodes have been at minimum very good. Season 6 is feeling so different at present that I'm just so excited to see where things go. Of course, towards the end of our long wait, it was suddenly announced that Gloob was going to strike first once the release date was too close to change for the other stations, so they got the world first. However, I think there was a realization that their dub wasn't going to be ready in time, and so they had to release the English dub with subtitles because they panicked, and by God, they were going to get that world first one way or another. So here we are. I really hope they never change. This kind of thing's just too funny to me. However, now it's time to jump into the episode, so let's go. We start off with a really powerful cold open, which just sets the tone of the entire episode. From that moment onwards, it was clear that this was going to be a big one. We see Luca saying farewell to his mum and sister and heading to the airport, with Ladybug looking rather resigned about it all, whilst Cat Noir hasn't quite accepted things yet. He's bargaining that Luca might not really know who he is, and thus it would be safe for him to stay. So he goes all the way to the airport, sneaks in and detransforms, just to talk to him to try to convince him. Adrien and Luca is a massively underrated friendship that I really wish had been utilised more in prior seasons, but I hope he does get used later on once this whole situation is resolved. I think Adrien needs a lot more close personal friends. This is just a really sad little scene that gets even more sad the further along in the episode you go. Luca really is a massive Chad, isn't he? Also, say farewell to the OG Adrien hairstyle. We might not ever see it again, but at least we got to see it in the new animation at least once. Like I said earlier though, this episode manages to balance so many different interconnected storylines, and after the intro we jump straight into the next one, with Marinette feeling the guilt about lying to Adrien about his father, and this leading to her beginning to spiral. Here we see her having an intense dream about how it could all go wrong for her, and that there's no way out. She wakes up screaming, and of course Tiki's back to having to deal with a user that's on the verge of a mental breakdown, and who won't listen to her advice. It really does feel like she missed her shot at telling Adrien the full truth. She should have straight up told him before a new butterfly user became active, to ensure the immediate spike in anger and grief would pass him by. Too late now though. It's destined to explode in everybody's face, and Adrien's gonna get akumatized for sure. Speaking of Adrien, we cut over to him and Natalie eating breakfast, and he just ain't feeling it. His dad's on his mind because they have a meeting at City Hall in regards to his memorial, and it's stirring things up. Back over to Marinette, and she's a bit of a mess too. She's back to jumbling up her words and is almost revealing the truth to everybody she speaks to, thanks to her awkward ways. A recipe for disaster. This girl needs to get a hold of herself. I have to say though, her reasoning to Tiki as to why she won't say anything is so flimsy. She promised Gabe she wouldn't. Gabe? Gabe can kiss my ass. The dude was an abuser and a supervillain who moments before he wished for his own death to try to save Natalie, had openly declared he didn't care who died as long as Emily came back. He preyed on the suffering and anguish of Paris for over a year, and canonically he sent out well over 100 Akumas, right? Pretty sure it's meant to be heaps more than just happened within the episodes. Feels like it would have been multiple times a day. The dude was pond scum, and she's trying to keep that promise? Nah, screw him. She's choosing here between her boyfriend and maintaining the legacy of her boyfriend's abusive dad, and she's choosing wrong. What I did like though is that the episode really does acknowledge that. There seems to be a bit of an arc building here. This knowledge that they have chose wrongly, but it's too late because everything's starting to snowball. In El Toro de Piedra, she finds that letter from Gabe ranting about Adrien finishing his schemes that she could have let him see, but she didn't because he had briefly felt better about his dad with the whole Papa Corn stuff. Later on, we see that Alia doesn't condone any of this and gets really angry about it before she loses her memory in Revelator. Thus, I think it's clear that you're supposed to feel that Marinette is making a mistake and that what she's doing is extremely wrong. Especially since the only person who thinks she's right is Natalie, who at the end of El Toro de Piedra was revealed to be far more sus than she had been previously. I just love how complex the writing's getting and how many episodes complement each other in these little ways. I'm loving the little arcs that we see being slowly fleshed out as we go along in the season. Then it's over to Adrien, who's back to ruminating on his dad and how he went from Papa Corn to the father that he knew, and then suddenly became the hero that saved Paris. Adrien, of course, knew him better than anybody in terms of his cruelty, and so he feels like he's missing something big. Meanwhile, Plag is panicking about Adrien being suspicious about what happened, and he even has to lie to him about everything being a bit of a blur. When the truth comes out about everything, do you reckon we're going to see a rift form here too? Is it going to damage their bond? Could we see Adrien briefly renounce the Miraculous, or do you think they're just going to brush over that in favour of drama with a different character, like Ladybug? Guess we'll have to wait and see. Marinette then turns up and it's off to City Hall, where we learn a couple of key things. First up is that Gabe's original statue has apparently been vandalised. I like this. I really do feel like that in story, Gabe was a famously massive asshole. And on top of that, even though Ladybug sort of absolved him by saying that he was threatened, it was made clear that he was working with Monarch at one point, so I can see why people would damage his statue in that case. Do we reckon it was a named character that did it? Was it Felix? Could it have been Adrien? Either way, I just thought it was a fun moment that adds to the world building. I do have to say, it feels like the city is massively glazing Gabe, going so far as to want to build a new statue of his and put it in front of City Hall. Also, I know they claim it's going to be over 10 meters high, which implies over 10 meters but under 20 meters, leaning closer to 10 meters because otherwise you'd say, well, it's going to be almost 20 meters high. But look at this thing, it's just towering over the rooftops. A quick Google search suggests that the Paris City Hall is apparently 50 meters tall, probably measured to that spire thingy. This statue is looking double that size. 10 meters, my ass. Theo then starts blowing smoke up Gabe's ass and even tries to pretend like he was a mentor figure to him. In front of his own son, no less. Does he have no shame? What I really loved though was Adrien getting heated in front of everybody at all the praise that his dad was getting and talking about all the bad things he did to him. Also talking mad shit about his dry pancakes. I was glad to see this. The illusion is shattered for Adrien, and now that he's gone, it seems a legacy he's left behind is a son who resents him. Once again though, we see Marinette have a girlfriend fail. Adrien's talking about his dad's negative qualities, and Marinette tries to be all, oh yeah, the abuse was bad, but he did save Ladybug. And that's a lie anyway. Also, Natalie engaging her angry glare when Marinette almost spills the beans. Judging by how things are playing out with Marinette and Natalie, there's a lot of tension building, and there's going to be some sort of proper blow up before long. There's massive side eyes and glares being thrown around here. Adrien leaves the meeting and goes downstairs, and of course Marinette goes and follows him to try to calm him down, and he ends up having a pretty emotional speech about how it all feels wrong. His dad was a cold and distant man, and Adrien doesn't understand how he could have supposedly been a hero. The last few days that he spent with him were awful and straight up abuse, and now he has to witness the world moving on, celebrating Gabe as a man, with Adrien feeling like it's not the reality for him. So not only does he feel somewhat gaslit by this idea that Gabe was a great hero and a good man, but he also feels like a very bad son for not having that fondness and being very angry. The writing for this has been so good. Adrien's having his own little renaissance in terms of his character depth and relevance this season. An Adrienaissance, if you will. We then get more Natalie and Marinette drama with more honed-in side-eye as they leave, which then escalates into a full-blown argument back at Adrien's house. Marinette cracks and wants to reveal the truth, but Natalie shuts her down and bullies her into submission, telling her that this would reveal the truth of who she is as Ladybug, or if she does it as Ladybug, it's going to reveal that Natalie was Gabe's accomplice. Funny, in the London special, she was all for facing the music about that, but now even the idea of just Adrien knowing the truth turns her off from the idea? What's changed? It's not like they have to go to the cops. I know that she's supposedly on that secret council now, but part of me thinks that this is just a smokescreen. I don't see them tossing her in the bin as a villain when they've built her up so much. There's got to be more to that story. This, though, I honestly think she's coming at it from a selfish perspective of not wanting Adrien to be mad at her. She's come to love him like a son and she doesn't want him to hate her. I think I'd actually be disappointed if this wasn't the case and she was actually just becoming a villain or something along those lines. It would feel like a character regression. Hopefully we get more about the Secret Council soon in some of these episodes to start to clear things up. We then cut over to Marinette's place where she's having a Skype call guitar lesson with Luca, and she kinda stinks, but hey, at least she's trying. I suppose she's trying to fill in the empty spot on Kitty section. We got our first look at Luca's girlfriend, and as soon as I saw her, my hackles were up because I knew ahead of time she was going to be a fake girlfriend. Ugh, my body was ready to cringe. Not my boy, I was thinking. Not Luca. Surely they're not going to make him look this pathetic. Marinette decides she needs to talk to Luca about something important and flies to Brazil, telling him that she's going to be there in an hour or so. And this in turn gives us time with the pretend girlfriend. And how do you even set this sort of thing up, by the way? How do you approach somebody about this type of thing? Yeah, I know we've only known each other for a couple of weeks, but do you think you could pretend to be my girlfriend when I'm Skyping everybody I know? Also, who is his guardian when he's here? Is his dad with him? Is Penny? Surely he isn't just living alone in Brazil, right? Also, it feels very obvious that this girl and Luca are totally going to make the jump from pretend couple to real couple at some point. Otherwise, it just becomes a bit much. We then get a little flashback that explores why Luca's in Brazil and why Marinette was so okay with him leaving, as it felt a little bit out of character for her to just banish a friend like that. In the flashback, Luca tells Marinette that despite Monarch being defeated, with a new butterfly user out there, he doesn't want to put either her or Cat Noir at risk in case he gets akumatized. She asks, well, why would you get akumatized? And to be fair, you can be akumatized for anything. It's not like he's so zen as to have become immune or anything like that. Either way, he decides to be truthful now, and he powers up before using his time loop power. He reveals that he's still in love with Marinette, and that whilst he's happy for her and Adrien, he's also scared that he'll become bitter and that it's going to ruin their friendship. Hence, he's going to Brazil. He also decides that he's going to go back in time and lie to Marinette so he doesn't burden her with that information, and then he comes up with the lie of having met somebody. Okay, so he's not pathetic after all, he's just a massive Chad. Yeah, maybe honesty is the best policy, but in this context, I think he made the right choice for himself and for Adrien and Marinette. At least, he made the right choice in lying to them about having feelings. I think that maybe going all the way to Brazil was probably a little bit drastic, wasn't it? An 11-hour flight from all of your friends and family just to get over a girl. Seeing Luca as this angsty, depressed teenager all of a sudden after years of him being this wise guru figure, it's so strange, but it's rather fun as well. I think it humanizes him a lot. Regardless though, this scene was just so sad. After a brief cutaway where Adrien tells Natalie that he doesn't want the statue built, we return to the beach where Ladybug arrives to talk to Luca, and she pulls the same move on Luca that he pulled in the flashback. She borrows the snake and uses his power before she reveals that Gabe was Monarch and she'd been lying the whole time. Also, side note, but the unified snake and Ladybug suit goes very hard, and I love the snake eyes she gets. Just a great design choice. But here is where we got something that felt rather curious. Luca seems to somewhat panic here when he gets this information, which I found very strange. In Revelator, Alia finds out the information, and while she clearly gets really angry, it's not quite the same as this. Here he seems almost scared of something. Like he knows something that she doesn't, and then he asks her with the caveat of no questions asked, to give him her miraculous. He claims that he knows things that she doesn't, and he's the only person who can fix this. And I do wonder what his plan was. I'm thinking that he must have learned something in his guardian training, right? I doubt he was going to try to make a wish or anything like that, was he? I've seen some people hating on him for getting all intense and up in her face and stuff, but come on. Dude knew he was at risk of having time reversed and never being able to help her. In the end, maybe he should have remained more calm, but the fact that he did get so stressed, it suggests there's more at play than we've realised. I suspect something more is going to be revealed in the latter half of the season, or potentially even heading into season 7. Also, he did reveal that he loves Marinette, so she gets to live with that little tidbit now too. Yikes, she ain't having a good day. Back in Paris, Mayor Bustier tells Theo that a statue is a no-go because Adrien isn't ready yet and he needs time to grieve. And of course, the creeper finds a way to make it all about me. He rants about how Adrien's an unworthy son who doesn't recognize Gabe's talent or legacy. Then he's akumatized, and I loved how they interwove Gabe's voice into the Chrysalis voice mix. I thought it was a really clever way to go about things and further showcase how Lila's able to custom make her akumatizations. Where Gabe was all brute force and domination, she's been about finesse and figuring out the best way to talk to somebody and get them on side willingly. So yeah, Theo sucks and willingly chooses the name Mr. Agreste, stomping off to go and find Adrien. He finds him and Adrien freezes. There's no powering up, no nothing. He would have been straight up caught if Natalie hadn't run in to save him in the nick of time. One thing I'm really enjoying is that they're going out of their way to show the impact that having Gabe as a parent has had on Adrien with all his trauma and fears. I'm really excited to see what direction they keep pushing things. Here at last the battle begins. Adrien powers up into Cat Noir and we have a fairly basic David versus Goliath type fight. But whilst the action is rather basic, the emotion behind it is huge and I think it even hints at story implications. He cataclysms a few projectiles, dodges some others, and then gets caught on the back foot when Gabe tries to punch him, leaving him to instinctively use Cataclysm, which takes off his arm. Where have I seen this before? He seems so distraught about potentially hurting this akumatized villain that I suspect we're going to be getting the hint that this is going to matter to him quite a lot. When he does eventually find out who Gabe was, he'll also realize that he cataclysmed his dad and that he couldn't use Ladybug's power to reverse it. That his dad is dead because of him, at least in his eyes. He's going to be carrying some major guilt and I feel like he's going to think he murdered his own dad. He gets smacked across Paris just like his actual dad used to do, and after he manages to send a signal to Ladybug, he ends up trapped beneath debris and has his miraculous straight up stolen, but he manages to escape into the metro. Now I will admit at this point in the episode I was rolling my eyes because, oh, look, Adrien's out of the fight and Ladybug gets to swoop in for the victory. I will admit, I judged too hastily, although something tells me I was not alone in that. It quickly becomes clear though that even Ladybug can't beat this guy. He just keeps coming back for more and regrows body parts that were destroyed almost instantly. None of her lucky charms can work, and then after summoning her final one, a megaphone, she gets grabbed, and this is the end of the line. Lila is about to win. She already has the Cat Miraculous, and now she just needs the Ladybug. She's made the perfect villain. There's no hope. Until Adrien appears and hits him with a crowbar and asks him, if Gabe was such a good father, why didn't he want him to have friends? He picks up the megaphone and just goes through his laundry list of complaints about Gabe's abuse, and Theo, to his credit, actually starts to realize, whoops, I idolized an abuser. This ends up destroying Theo's will to keep fighting, and the statue crumbles, Ladybug cleanses the Akuma, yada yada yada. Suddenly, Adrien wasn't getting sidelined so Ladybug could swoop in and look like the hero. The only reason they won and that Paris was saved is because of him. Hell yeah, I'm loving the increase in prominence and importance that Adrien's been having this season. Tell you what though, Lila would have to be salty about all of this, right? This is a Gabe level snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. Quite literally moments away from complete and total annihilation, only for it to slip through her fingers through no fault of her own. Just because this dude wanted to deal with Adrien first, even though he had Ladybug in his hands. Ladybug gives Theo a charm, Theo does not apologise to Adrien at all on screen, Ladybug gives Cat Noir some comfort, and despite the victory, the ending is really bittersweet. Adrien's depressed because he feels like he never knew his father, and he'll have to live with so many unanswered questions, whilst Marinette decides that Natalie was right. There's no going back now. It's too late to tell Adrien the truth. However, what I liked about this ending is that it clearly wasn't being framed as one of those episodes like we used to get that show why Adrien can't find something out, to try to artificially extend the story. To me, this is instead meant to show that he should know, and that by hiding things, everything's only going to get worse and worse. I expect that this plot point's going to further snowball across the latter half of the season. We already see in Revelator that it's still weighing heavily on Marinette, but I suspect that eventually it will all explode. Maybe Lady Chaos? The episode then ends with a jump back to when Ladybug met up with Luca. Whilst we saw the fake girlfriend walk away, turns out she didn't go very far, and she sees Ladybug and thus suspects that Luca might also have a Miraculous. And it seems that she does too. So I reckon this is probably either setting up a future episode bringing Luca in again, or it's meant to set up a world special set in Rio. Maybe both. Maybe there's going to be more story for him in season 6 and then also the special? We'll have to wait and see on that score. Anyway though, this episode was well and truly worth the wait. It was amazing. I loved it. Truly a top tier episode, and I hope they can keep them this good. We have Sleeping Siren coming out on the 1st of October, and that one's a jump back to before a lot of the big drama of the season happens, so I don't expect this episode's going to be hugely world-changing. Maybe a Kim exploration? We'll see how that goes. I am keen to see what they've cooked up for Dark Castle though, which slots in after this episode and before Revelator. With all that being said though, these have just been my opinions, and now I'd like to hear yours. What did you think of Mr. Agreste? Did you like it? Hate it? I'm curious for your thoughts, so make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know.